recording going, and also we're going to be over on the ATBA Facebook page. So give me a moment and I will get those wheels spinning. All right, we are now streaming live to Facebook, and we're now officially on. It is 3 p.m. Central Time, and welcome to today's ATBA LPTV webinar for July the 8th, 2020. And with us, we have our guest, Heidi Steffen from Titan TV, and Jay Fenderlich from Red Media. So, and I see Heidi has two screens. So somebody is logging in as you, Heidi, just FYI. Oh. So it could be someone else in your building using your login. So they're joining us as a panelist here, it looks like. Let me see if I can remove that person. Well, I'm not sure if I can remove it without removing you. So someone else in your building is a guest or is a panelist with us. So whoever else from Titan TV probably logged in. All right, well, we're just going to continue on. I'm going to mute them, and we'll make sure that maybe they won't pop up. I'm afraid to delete it. It might delete you too, Heidi. So, all right. So as we get started on our webinar today, we're going to talk about that never-ending, why in the world is my programming schedule not on scrolling cable or on the newspaper or wherever it's supposed to be? Why is it from 5 years ago? So that's a good question that we always want to answer. So our panelists today, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself. So we'll start with Heidi, and tell us about you and what you do, and for our audience today.
Yes, I am Heidi Steffen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Titan TV, Inc. I oversee our entire sales, marketing, and customer care team here at Titan TV. We provide guide and data services to TV stations. We also provide a scheduling tool that allows TV stations to build out their schedule. And with that, those different guide and data services, we partner with Red to provide our baseline data, which then within our scheduling tool, MediaStar, stations are able to build upon that, build out their schedule, but it allows them to not have to enter in all that data. So because we already have it in the global program library that we get it from Red, it saves them a lot of time to build out their schedule and do it very quickly. And then be able to send that same schedule to other data providers in the US so that that program schedule is same across all of the different platforms that you might be able to find what's on TV, from newspaper to cable to satellite to over the air, so that it's consistent. And so that's probably one of the most confusing things I think in the industry is, how did that program information get there? That's not what I sent out. Who's updating it? So hopefully we'll be able to answer some of those questions today.
All right, great. And we have Jay with us from Red Bee. And Jay, introduce yourself and who you are, what you do, and also that you're a fellow lumberjack.
That's right.
From SFA, just up the road from where I'm at today. I'm in Lufkin, just FYI, so just 22 miles down the road from SFA. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jay Funderlich, and my title is Head of Production for Content Discovery. The company I work for is called Red Media. Now, I like to joke around that we've kind of gone under an identity change over the last, I don't know, 3-4 years, because previously we were FYI Television, and we were acquired by Ericsson back in 2016. And about a year and a half ago, then they rebranded us from Ericsson to Red Bee Media. So we're still owned and controlled by Ericsson, but we're off on our own little island unto itself. So what we do, we're a data aggregator, I think is kind of the simplest way to put it, for the broadcast industry. So we collect programming information for anybody that's, broadcasting a signal across the USA, Canada, Mexico. We have a portion inside of UK as well. So we do about 4,000 television sources across Europe. And then in the US, we handle about 10,000 stations on a daily basis. And that ranges from, all your broadcast stations across all 210 DMAs to your major cable networks, pay-per-view channels, and then, we collect OTT information. So I like to say television, but, television has changed over the course of time. So it's not just what's airing on television. It's your Netflixes, your Hulus, and all that sort of information. And my job is to acquire it, normalize it, and then provide it back out as many times as we possibly can to clients like AT&T, ComScore, Frontier Communications, TDS, and of course Titan TV as well.
Right, so definitely things are changing. Last time I had to put out a program schedule was in 1999 when I ran LPTV stations. So a lot has changed. As a matter of fact, a lot has changed in the last year. So let's go ahead and get started. What is that process? What is the process of, I've got my Excel spreadsheet of programs that I run on my station. What in the world do I do with it? And so I don't know who wants to take that on first. So
Heidi, I'll go ahead and grab this, and you can you can interrupt me as you feel free. That's a great question, because we deal with, like I said, 10,000 sources. We get all sorts of different formats. The type of information that we're looking for on an ongoing basis is, number one, consistency is key. But your basic date, time, and title information is information that we like to get in a consistent fashion. No abbreviations, and then really as much information that you can provide us, in addition to that basic data, right? When I say date, time, and title, episodic information, any sort of episode numbers, production numbers, and what that allows us to do is, search with inside of our database to make sure that we're making those correct, associations if possible. Things like original air date and cast information. As a data aggregator, I want it all. I want to get as much possible data as I can, because I want to enrich it as much as I possibly can to provide it out to newspapers and on-screen guides and things along that line. So that would be number one. But we get Word documents, we get Excel documents. It's been a while. My old joke was I used to get a handwritten fax from a schedule, and I can't remember the name of it. And I probably shouldn't call them out either, but that wasn't too long ago. It was probably about 7 years ago or so, where someone would write.
Actually, that was probably my old boss, and he's no longer on this earth. But
Okay.
anyway, yes, he loved the fax machine. So anyway, what kind of lead time are you looking for in getting schedule information into your systems?
Right. So traditionally we work on about a 3-week window overall. That's where I would like to be. Now, the way we manage our systems and things along that line from a network airing perspective, we're a little bit further out than that. And what I mean by that is your Foxes, your CBSs, anything that kind of has that hard network feed, we get that information from the networks as well. That data is out a little bit further, and it allows us to kind of safeguard our deliveries to a certain extent. But ideally, from an OTA affiliate standpoint, I want to be at least 3 weeks out as possible. Standard, 14 days is about what we normally deliver to most, digital clients. Our newspapers fall within inside that 14-day window for the most part. But if I can get 21 days out and I could edit it accurately, 21 days out, then that would be the best case scenario.
Okay, so I may not have all of the content, but let's say I'm going to air a John Wayne movie. Is that something you probably have in your database, all of the media-rich content? And if I provided a title, an air date, and all that other fun stuff, you may probably have all that other data?
Yeah, so if it's aired on television in the last 25 years, we should have it, without a doubt, we should have it. Now, we also have done projects over the course of years to make sure that we have as much data as possible. So we're creating, for example, now we're creating theatrical movies in advance right now, because at some point it's going to hit linear television, and it also serves other verticals for us as well. But we've done, projects where I can't think of the name of the movie. We created like the first audio movie ever in the early 1900s. And then I've worked our way throughout the years to make sure that we have your major release movies. We use things like the MPA as a source to go through and say, okay, what were the movies released in 1978? Boom, we built a project off of it, created them in the database, wrote descriptions for them, added all the cast, contributors, the directors, the grips, all that type of information, as well as release dates. And now we're in the process of really trying to make sure that we add all of the release dates across the UK's release date and the US release date in Canada. So yeah, that information should be in our database at that point.
All right, so as an LPTV station, is there a cost for me to provide this data to you?
Nope. No, so we've made the commitment to maintain all over-the-air stations for the most part. At some point, there is some lack of return on investment if we're building something that's completely unique, but for the most part, yes, we're gonna receive that schedule information. We're gonna create a station within inside of our database, and we're gonna build and enhance that channel just like we would an HBO or a TBS or anything along that line.
All right, now you work very, very closely with Titan TV in regards to what they do and what you do in regards to those data connectors. And also, Heidi, you've got a tool that an LPTV operator can use to build those schedules so that Jay doesn't have to get it all on a scratched Word document, right?
Right. So we've actually worked with quite a few of the low power stations. So again, like Jay says, for the most part, they have most of those pass-through channels are able to have it. But there are a few instances where maybe it's highly all local programming. They're the only one that airs it. So we have a tool called MediaStar that allows the station to build out that schedule. Then they can send those reports off to FYI electronically through email at this point to be able to enter it in the system. But then it also allows them to then send that out into PSEP. So as we know, low power has to be digital by next summer. This allows to make sure then that those consumers that are receiving the signal over the air is having all that information that is needed. What is the program? What's the episode? The description. As we know, people are more information gathered. They want to know more about that as they look at the information as far as what's on now or what's on this station. So MediaStar allows them to build that out. One of the things that we're actually working with Red Bee now on as well is really unique is that they'll not only be able to send the information via email, but they'll be able to electronically send it from MediaStar. So they say next month, go ahead and send my schedules to FYI electronically or Red Bee. What that means to not only the station, but also consumers is that information is going to get updated quicker in Red Bee system. So anyone else that they provide their data to is going to get updated quicker there. So that turnaround, that no matter where that data is going to be, it's going to be updated in a much quicker manner than it is currently today. So that's one of the projects we've been working on with them, and hopefully we'll be able to push that out end of this year.
All right, so your two systems are going to be able to talk together. So that will also help us as LPTV operators to to get that information. So a lot of people don't quite understand still today the PSIP situation and how that programming material pops up on the consumer screen on the other end. And that's part of the service that you do provide, correct?
Correct. So yes, we do provide the PSIP data service for the ATSC 1.0, and we will be able to provide it for ESG 3.0. Again, depending on the hardware that the LPTV station is using to be able to ingest that piece of data and then send it out with their digital signal, will determine how much of that metadata is going out to the consumer. That is, when they click on the guide on their TV, that metadata is showing up. So if they're wanting more information, they want to have more of that cast and crew information, they're going to want to have a hardware piece that allows them to have what we call dynamic or PMCP data for that, so that when it goes out, that receiver, again, will determine what's pulling in, but it'll have more of that information. And as we know, the more information you provide, the more willing that someone's going to watch that. That's where with 3.0, the rich media, so the show cards, the cast and crew information. So we also work with Red Bee to pull in all the information. They not only do the metadata, they also coordinate and they get all the movie posters, the show cards for it. And then we grab that information, we coordinate within our system and then send it out with the ESG then for 3.0, or also the next gen guides that a lot of the TV stations have on their website. Again, that's where our partnership with FYI Red Bee is allowing us to provide that to then our end clients.
Right. So many people may not understand what a show card is. If you're watching Netflix and you pause it, or a movie on Amazon, most of the time you see what? A show card, correct?
Yep. So to me, it's especially what I've always learned is like the low power. A lot of time they have some of the older information. So I go to my parents and my mom's like, she doesn't necessarily remember the program by the title, but then she sees that image or the show card that shows the old characters, maybe that image that they grew up with, and all of a sudden it clicks. Oh my God, I love that show. I want to be able to make sure I watch that. I'm gonna save it and make sure I watch it, tomorrow when it's on. So that's the idea behind that visual show card. It brings back, people are more visual, brings back that memories, and then yes, I want to make sure I watch it. Or they continue to see that image over and over, and it's going to be sunk, and then they're going to want to then remember it and watch it.
Okay, so basically a visual for that particular program.
Yep.
But that goes further also with actors, actresses, things of that nature, correct?
Correct. Yep. So that's the nice thing as well. Not only does Red Bee provide the program information, they also provide cast and crew information. So Tom Hanks is one we always bring up. So you want to know more about Tom Hanks, you could click on Tom Hanks and they'll bring up more information. I know that I can do this today on Amazon Prime, for example. When I watch anything and I want to learn more about the actor, actresses, this will be something that we'll be able to provide then in 3.0 for all that data that we'll be able to inquire.
All right, right now, most of us are still in 1.0 world. And what are some of the pitfalls, problems, those things that you're seeing from LPTV operators out there that you would love to get that information out there to everybody, say, hey, would you fix this? I know you'd love everybody to get on MediaStar for sure, but what problems are you seeing from stations as you're trying to ingest this data? Anything that we need to, that you want to tell the audience to don't do it this way?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just communicate with the different data providers. I think that's one of the downfalls is a lot of times, even this is in full stations, they don't know necessarily who to reach out to as far as where is my data, how do I get it to? Well, we always say if you're unsure, send us an email, we'll give you those contacts. It's pretty general contacts. We have a great partnership with Red Bee FYI, so we'll make sure you get in contact with them, that you're sending information to them. So that should be the first step, is make sure that you are sending out what channels do you have, what affiliations are on those channels, and if you make any changes at any point. Because again, if you're not informing the data providers and company like us about those changes, then we can't inform the consumers about the changes on your channels. So that would be the first thing. And then second, if you make any changes, especially last minute changes, that's where some of our tools come into play to allow you to make those changes. Because keep in mind, the time that a change is sent to a data provider like Red Bee, it could take 48 to 72 hours before it gets back into a system like ours. So that's where a cable provider or someone like that might be carrying that channel, there's that delay in there. So that's where if you have PSUP with us, for example, we provide an editing tool that allows you to make those last minute changes so that at least that data that's going out to over the air to the consumers that are receiving that will always have the most up-to-date accurate information. And with that comes a guide that can sit on your website that then is another form to allow consumers to know what's on my channels, what's on my stations. And with that, I would highly recommend too, when your station goes digital, you have some sort of piece of data. We've reached out to the FCC to verify it's not required for low powers once they go digital, but note that there are many receivers that will not pick up your signal for that end consumer if there's not piece of data for them to pick up. So even if it's basic static piece up, you need to have that information in your stream, or those consumers aren't going to even see your channel because that end receiver that they're using to pick up your channel isn't picking up that station.
Right. Yes, I think we've stated somewhere that that was a requirement, but it's not an FCC requirement, but it will be a requirement if you want some of the new TVs to pick up your data stream. So that's going to be very, very important to our audience to be sure that you are getting the correct PSIP information and keep that updated on your channel. So Jay, anything that you want to tell our audience to avoid or not to do, or a better way to do it?
So, you know, again, consistency is key. Like Heidi said, communication is really important. You know, there's so many changes that happen on your .2s, 3s, and 4s that we supply and provide out there. And I think sometimes that gets lost in communication. We've run into situations where, you know, a broadcaster has, you know, changed a DT3 2 years ago, and then, you know, hasn't provided that information to us. Sometimes I think that, you know, there's a disconnect sometimes from the schedulers to the engineers and things like that, where I think they're sometimes blind to it in certain situations. But, you know, we go back and even update our database. So I'll go back all the way those 2 years, and I'll correct that programming, you know, back. So we do have an accurate depiction of what was being broadcast at a certain time. We actually track all of that information. So, you know, the dates of when those changes happen is really important to us. You know, from a scheduling perspective, you know, I think, you know, as I was saying about consistency is great. You know, as changes are made, any way that you can highlight those changes and point them out to us. You know, I've got a staff about, you know, 100 here in this, you know, 100 individuals in the States that are updating the information. So it's a lot faster when I know exactly what I need to change, opposed to somebody going, you know, line item by line item down a schedule and looking, you know, most of it's the same, but it's that one program that ends up biting us from a provider standpoint of, why'd you miss that, you know? So I think that's important, highlighting, you know, UFN changes, you know, so if something is changing from this to that, you know, going forward, you know, pointing that out to us so we know that we can fix our data, you know, all, you know, 2-3 weeks in advance, and then continue to roll that information going forward as well. Yeah, communication, that's great. And if there's ever any questions or anything like that, just to make sure you reach out to us and let us know so we can troubleshoot and figure out what we need to do to resolve any issues.
All right. FYI is one of the larger, I guess the largest data provider. So in all fairness, there are a couple of others that stations should submit their programming to. Do you want to take that on, Heidi?
Yeah, so the other ones that you need to make sure that you're sending your data to is Gracenote, which is formerly known of TMS and is now owned by Nielsen. Then you have TiVo, which used to be TV Guide. So Rovi bought TV Guide and TiVo bought Rovi. So you have to send it to TiVo. And then there's a new one that came into the market. It's called TV Media. They're actually out of Canada, but they handle a lot of the smaller newspapers and things like that in the US. So those are the four. So it would be Redby, FYI, Gracenote, TiVo, and then TV Media are the ones that you need to be able to take. Also, I always ask your local cable company. So what we've learned in the past is sometimes cable companies aren't even taking it from any of the data providers. Maybe they're pulling it from PSUP, or they're getting it directly from the station. So if there is a cable company in your area and you're like, that data's not correct, go ask them, where are you getting that data from that's populating your guide? How can I get that updated? Even with some of the satellite companies, you know, if you're unsure, you can ask us. And a lot of times it's going to be one of your big ones, but maybe things have changed. So that's, again, in this day and time, accounts are being changed one way or another. So if you're unsure, go to that source. Now we know they're not always going to respond, or reach out to us and we'll try to give you direction as far as who might be the best person to talk to regarding that particular company that has your data and why that particular schedule is incorrect.
All right, well, hopefully in the next day or two, we'll publish an article on the ATBA website with contacts of all of those different providers, and with whoever you want to be the point at Titan TV, and also some information on how that you can get the LPTV Media Star PSIP, that information as well. We do want to thank Titans TV for being one of the ATBA gold sponsors. And we appreciate that, along with QVC and Eric and Newsnet. So we appreciate those sponsors for sponsoring us, as well as our platinum sponsors, One Media, Sinclair, and Gray Television. So at this point in time, we're going to move on to our question and answer session. And we're going to let our audience raise their hands or type in a question to our Q&A. And I see there's, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and lower all hands. And if somebody wants to raise their hand or to type a question to see if they can stump Heidi or Jay on a particular subject, let's keep with programming schedules. So, or do we want to do softball? I know that's a big deal at Titan TV, huh?
Well, it's baseball for the Field of Dreams. That's a big game coming to Iowa. We're from Iowa.
Oh, that's right.
Yep, less than a month.
Less than a month. So there's an actual game. Are you going to actually play?
No, I'm not actually going to play.
No.
I'm a little rusty, but I got all my gear. And I was curious if it was going to happen, but now Cardinals has replaced Yankees. So it's Cardinals versus the White Sox. And as you know, Iowa has no professional sports in the state. So this will be the first, I don't know if the first, but it'll be one of the only ones that I'm aware of a national sports game in Iowa.
So, wow, how do you get a ticket to that event?
Oh, it's expensive. And last I heard, I'm not quite sure if they're going to have guests. I mean, they were still building the stadium, because that's where, if you see any of our pictures, we took pictures at the Field of Dreams last fall, and they're in the process of building that new stadium next to the movie site. So it'll be interesting what happens in a month.
Well, hopefully the corn is doing well.
Yes, it is. It's hot and humid.
So I guess you've answered every question, not a single question. And this group is usually pretty good about throwing you some questions. So anybody else out there want to ask a question of our panelists today? A question has popped up. This one's someone that is anonymous today. So if my LPTV has 8 DigiNets, 2.1, 2.2.2, etc. networks as pass through, does Titan TV build the list?
So if they're pass-throughs, what we do is we just basically build it in our back-end system, and we then look at those pass-throughs and then just connect them from the data that we're getting from Redby. And then then for your station, that's going to be your channels that would then go out and piece up or the guide on your website. So it's pretty easy to be able to build that and create that, and put it pretty quick turnaround from us as well, as long as it's a pass-through that's already been known and in the market.
Okay, so that was a very, very easy question. And that's a good thing, because people really, even though you're just passing through a DigiNet, which many of our LPTV guys do, that programming information does need to be built into your PSIP, correct?
Correct, yep. All the channels need to be in the PSIP.
All right. All right, anybody else? Well, you guys may get off easy today. And
I would say even some of those pass-throughs, so like on the West Coast, there's some in different languages. We're able to provide all those. Again, FYI is doing multiple languages that they're working with that. So I've seen Korean, I've seen oh, there's all sorts that I've seen, especially on the West Coast when you get into a lot of those multi. So it's one of those, if you're unsure, just send it to us. We'll look into it. You know, we inquire with Red Bee and say, hey, do you have this or can you get it for us? They've worked really well with us, be able to add some of these, knowing that with low powers going digital in the next year, that there's going to be more of them. They're going to need to have those digital channels. So again, it's worth, just ask us and we'll let you know what we have available.
Right, many of our LPTV operators do run a lot of language channels. So another question has popped up. Anonymous, is there special equipment needed for the encoder for the pass-through networks? Is there a fee?
As far as when it comes to the PSUP, it's really just dependent on your hardware to make sure that it can pull in that. A lot of encoders or MUX have now that PSUP hardware built in them. There are still a few that you need a separate PSUP hardware. As far as that, it's just our PSUP data service that would need to be put into the system. I would then refer actually what kind of hardware to use onto a hardware provider. We're actually doing a PSUP 103 webinar next week with Heartland Video that is a consultant with different hardwares. They'll be able to answer all the hardware questions. Again, we're just on the data side. So I'd highly recommend attending that. And then Heartland Video would be able to answer some of those questions. And they could actually prefer, as far as a low power, what would be your better fit as far as cost versus ability as far as what data is going out.
Right, so you guys do have a very, very good fee, I believe, inexpensive fee for LPTV operators. So be sure to look into that. And also that seminar coming up on PSIP, you can see information about that at broadcastingalliance.org or in the last email that you got last night. Most of our attendees got that email last night that has that information on that particular session coming up, so you can register for that event. Let's see, any other questions out there before we end for today? We'll give it just a second. But just FYI, there are a lot of Zoom webinars or basic webinars for the industry out there. We're going to try to list as many of those as we can. I think Perry Priestley's organization has one coming up. You'll see that one on the website. So we're going to be back with you next Wednesday. And we have a guest invited. We haven't got his okay yet, whether he's going to join us, but it'll be a very, very good guest. If not, it'll be a very good guest anyway. So I don't see any other questions. So I want to thank Heidi and Jay for being with us today. And we'll see everyone next week on the ATBA Wednesday webinar. Axum Jacks, right?
There you go.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye.